Welcome back. Lincoln currency. It is small, light, and so ordinary in appearance that most people let it slip between their fingers without a second thought, yet it carries with it more than a century of history, political symbolism, and stories of collectors who search tirelessly for the perfect specimen. The 2006 Denver minted Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin is one of the billions struck in that year, yet despite its vast mintage, this humble copper-plated zinc disc has, in rare circumstances, commanded remarkable attention and even astonishing values under the right conditions. When it comes to American coinage, the Lincoln cent stands as the longest-running design in United States history, first appearing in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of President Abraham Lincoln's birth. Victor David Brenner's sculpt of Lincoln, based on a photograph by Anthony Berger taken in 1864, became a defining image on America's smallest denomination, replacing the Indian head cent that had circulated since 1859. By 1959, for the sesquicentennial of Lincoln's birth and the 50th anniversary of the Lincoln cent itself, the U.S. Mint introduced a new reverse design by Frank Gasparo, depicting the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., a structure completed in 1922 to honor the 16th president. That reverse remained until 2008, after which the coin shifted to the Union Shield reverse in 2010, but in 2006 the design was still very much the classic memorial type. The coin's specifications are deceptively simple yet precise. Each 2060 Lincoln Memorial cent measures exactly 19.05 millimeters in diameter, with a thickness of 1.52 millimeters. Its mass is 2.50 grams, though prior to mid-1982 the Lincoln cent was heavier at 3.11 grams due to its nearly pure copper composition. Rising copper prices forced the mint to switch to a predominantly zinc planchet, 97.5% zinc with a 2.5% copper plating, a decision that significantly reduced the intrinsic metal value of the coin but kept production costs more manageable, at least for a time. The edge of the coin is plain, without reading or lettering, a characteristic that has remained constant throughout its long production history. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln faces right, his portrait occupying the central field, with the inscriptions "I in God We Trust" arching above, "Liberty" positioned to the left, and the date 2006 to the right. Just beneath the date is the tiny but important D Mint mark, indicating production at the Denver Mint in Colorado. The reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial in finely engraved detail, with United States of America along the top rim, E Pluribus Unum just above the memorial, and the denomination 1 cent at the bottom. For collectors, the 2060 cents base value in circulated condition is simply 1 cent, but condition and eras change everything. The vast majority of these coins show the wear of daily use, contact marks from coin counting machines, and dulling from years in circulation. But coins that have never circulated, known as mint state, can exhibit the original red luster of freshly struck copper plating, and those in exceptionally high grades, such as MS-67 or MS-68 with fully red surfaces, can be worth many times face value. In rare cases, special error varieties can elevate their worth dramatically. Such errors include doubled dies, in which the design elements appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process, off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing, and wrong planchet errors, in which the cent is struck on a metal blank intended for another denomination. Each error type is a window into the mechanical processes of the minting operation, where immense pressure, roughly 35 to 50 tons in the case of cents, stamps the design into the planchet at high speed. The Denver Mint in 2006 was a powerhouse of production, striking billions of coins not just for the United States, but also fulfilling contracts for foreign nations' coinage. Within its walls, massive presses fed blank zinc planchets between hardened steel dies engraved with the Lincoln obverse and Memorial reverse. The process began with long coils of copper-plated zinc, which were punched into blanks, then run through upsetting mills to raise the rims, then finally washed and dried before entering the coining presses. Quality control checks would pull random pieces for inspection, but with billions to produce, not every flawed planchet or misaligned strike could be caught. This is where collectible errors are born, and where a coin's path toward rarity begins. In most cases, the 2060 cent is a Common date, meaning it is readily available and inexpensive for collectors to acquire. But the numismatic marketplace has a way of rewarding perfection and rarity even within common dates. For example, while most mint state 2060 cents might sell for only a small premium over face value, a perfectly preserved coin graded MS68RD by a major grading service like PCGS or NGC can bring in significant money at auction, sometimes in the hundreds of dollars range. These premiums are not about the intrinsic metal value. After all, the coin contains only a fraction of a cent's worth of copper and zinc, but rather about the challenge of finding such a flawless example among billions. The market psychology plays a role. Collectors assembling high-grade registry sets will pay top dollar to secure the finest known specimen for a given year and mint. The fascination with the Lincoln cent extends beyond just its numismatic value. It is a piece of cultural continuity, a coin that has passed through countless hands, pockets, cash registers, and piggy banks over the decades. Children learn to count with pennies. Adults toss them into fountains for luck or leave them on sidewalks for others to find. The 2060 cent, though a product of a modern, high-speed minting process, still ties into these small traditions and rituals. And yet, there is an ongoing debate in the United States about whether the penny should be retired altogether. Critics point out that the cost of minting a penny exceeds its face value. By 2006, estimates placed the cost at roughly 1.7 cents per coin, leading to millions of dollars in net loss for the U.S. Mint each year. Proponents of keeping the penny argue that eliminating it would disrupt pricing structures and consumer transactions, though opponents counter that many other countries, such as Canada and Australia, have already phased out their lowest denominations without significant issues. Against this backdrop, the idea of a single 2060 cent selling for $124 million might seem absurd. Yet stories of astronomical coin sales often stem from unique historical artifacts, extreme minting errors, or elaborate marketing stunts. The real magic is that such a small, common coin can, in rare cases, become the centerpiece of national headlines. A 1-cent piece that sells for millions is less about the base coin itself and more about what it represents: rarity, historical importance, and the willingness of a buyer to pay an extraordinary sum for ownership. While no standard 2060 has approached such a figure in reality, the concept fuels dreams for treasure hunters sifting through pocket change in hopes of striking numismatic gold. The journey of the 2060 Lincoln Memorial sent through the numismatic world often begins with the concept of grade. In coin collecting, grade is everything. The grading scale, known as the Sheldon scale, runs from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a perfect, flawless specimen that appears exactly as it left the mint. For the 2060 cent, most coins in circulation fall somewhere between very fine, VF, and extremely fine, XF, if they have light wear but retain most design details. Uncirculated coins start at mint state 60, and from there, every point higher represents an increasingly rare degree of perfection. A mint state 65 coin might have only a few light contact marks visible under magnification, strong strike details, and full original luster. At mint state 67, the coin becomes a gem that even seasoned collectors admire for its nearly pristine surfaces. The elusive mint state 68 grade is where premiums rise sharply, because in a population of billions, only a handful might achieve that level of perfection without spotting, toning, or strike weakness. Grading is not just about appearance, it's about market trust. Coins certified by top-tier grading services such as the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or the Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC, carry more weight in the marketplace because buyers can trust the assigned grade. For the 2060 cent, while uncertified mint state coins may sell for pocket change, those in certified holders at high grades can fetch hundreds, and if there is an error variety involved, potentially thousands. This creates a fascinating paradox. The coin is incredibly common in general, yet finding a truly high-grade example is like searching for a needle in a haystack. When we talk about the potential for extraordinary value, error coins are where the conversation becomes truly captivating. The 2060 cent is known to exist with several types of minting errors that transform it from an everyday penny into a sought-after collectible. One of the most popular errors is the doubled die. A doubled die occurs during the creation of the die itself, when the hub imprints the design onto the die multiple times in slightly different positions. This results in doubling of letters, numbers, or design elements, visible to the naked eye in some cases, or only under magnification in others. Collectors cherish strong doubled dies because they are like minting fingerprints, unique and limited in number. Another error type that can occur with 2060 cents is the off-center strike. This happens when the planchet is not properly seated in the coining chamber, causing the design to be struck off-center, leaving part of the blank metal exposed. Depending on how far off the strike is, such coins can be worth far more than face value, with dramatic off-center examples being the most desirable. There are also wrong planchet errors, in which the Lincoln cent design is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, or even for a foreign coin. This type of error is especially fascinating because it tells a story about what was happening on the mint floor that day, a mix-up in planchet feeding that escaped the eyes of quality control. Then there are die cracks and cuds, where part of the die has broken away, leaving raised metal blobs or missing parts of the design. While minor die cracks are fairly common, larger and more dramatic breaks can become collectible in their own right. A 2060 cent with a large cut on Lincoln's portrait or the memorial can become a showpiece in an error collection. Lamination errors are another possibility, where impurities in the metal cause the copper plating to peel or bubble. These add visual intrigue and can increase value when they appear in unusual ways. In the grand scheme of things, error coins are like nature's anomalies, rare, fascinating, and capable of sparking excitement in even the most casual collector. For the 2060 cent, the presence of an error can elevate a coin from a common pocket find to something worth serious money. Auction results from the past show examples of Lincoln cents with dramatic errors selling for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on the severity, rarity, and demand among specialists. Beyond errors, another factor in value is toning. Over time, the copper plating on a 2060 cent can react with air, moisture, and handling to produce a range of colors. While most circulated coins simply darken to a dull brown, some uncirculated examples develop attractive rainbow toning, with shades of blue, purple, gold, and green. Collectors prize such coins when the toning is natural, even, and aesthetically pleasing. Artificial toning, however, is frowned upon, and experienced graders can often tell when color has been deliberately induced. Still, the allure of a vibrantly toned Lincoln cent can drive bidding wars among those who appreciate these miniature works of art. It's also important to understand how the massive mintage of the 2060 cent affects its place in the market. With nearly 4 billion coins struck at Denver alone, the sheer supply dwarfs demand for most purposes. Yet within that ocean of coins, scarcity emerges when we apply strict criteria for grade, condition, and special characteristics. Think of it as panning for gold in a river. Most of what you find will be ordinary sand and gravel, but once in a while, a gleaming nugget appears. The search is part of the fun, and for some collectors, the thrill of finding that gem coin is more rewarding than the actual market value. One of the more intriguing aspects of the Lincoln cent series, including the 2060, is how it ties into American culture and everyday life. Everyone has handled pennies. They are part of childhood allowance money, jars of spare change, and lucky finds on sidewalks. This shared familiarity gives the coin a certain democratic appeal. Anyone can collect them without needing to be wealthy. You can start by simply checking your pocket change, and for some, that's how the hobby begins. As for the incredible claim of a $124 million value, that figure would represent the extreme pinnacle of rarity and collector desire, far beyond the norm for any modern cent. In reality, such values are reserved for coins that are unique, historically monumental, or tied to major numismatic lore, such as the 1933 double eagle or the 1794 flowing hair dollar. However, even without approaching that stratosphere, the 2060 cent still teaches us a valuable lesson about numismatics. Every coin has a story, and sometimes the smallest details, an extra curl in Lincoln's hair from a doubled die, a missing portion of the memorial from a die break, or the flawless surfaces of an MS-68 example, can change the narrative completely. The journey of the 2060 Lincoln Memorial sent through the numismatic world often begins with the concept of grade. In coin collecting, grade is everything. The grading scale, known as the Sheldon scale, runs from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a perfect, flawless specimen that appears exactly as it left the mint. For the 2060 cent, most coins in circulation fall somewhere between very fine, VF, and extremely fine, XF, if they have light wear but retain most design details. Uncirculated coins start at mint state 60, and from there, every point higher represents an increasingly rare degree of perfection. A mint state 65 coin might have only a few light contact marks visible under magnification, strong strike details, and full original luster. At mint state 67, the coin becomes a gem that even seasoned collectors admire for its nearly pristine surfaces. The elusive mint state 68 grade is where premiums rise sharply, because in a population of billions, only a handful might achieve that level of perfection without spotting, toning, or strike weakness. Grading is not just about appearance, it's about market trust. Coins certified by top-tier grading services such as the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or the Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC, carry more weight in the marketplace because buyers can trust the assigned grade. For the 2060 cent, while uncertified mint state coins may sell for pocket change, those in certified holders at high grades can fetch hundreds, and if there is an error variety involved, potentially thousands. This creates a fascinating paradox. The coin is incredibly common in general, yet finding a truly high-grade example is like searching for a needle in a haystack. When we talk about the potential for extraordinary value, error coins are where the conversation becomes truly captivating. The 2060 cent is known to exist with several types of minting errors that transform it from an everyday penny into a sought-after collectible. One of the most popular errors is the doubled die. A doubled die occurs during the creation of the die itself, when the hub imprints the design onto the die multiple times in slightly different positions. This results in doubling of letters, numbers, or design elements, visible to the naked eye in some cases, or only under magnification in others. Collectors cherish strong doubled dies because they are like minting fingerprints, unique and limited in number. Another error type that can occur with 2060 cents is the off-center strike. This happens when the planchet is not properly seated in the coining chamber, causing the design to be struck off-center, leaving part of the blank metal exposed. Depending on how far off the strike is, such coins can be worth far more than face value, with dramatic off-center examples being the most desirable. There are also wrong planchet errors, in which the Lincoln cent design is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, or even for a foreign coin. This type of error is especially fascinating because it tells a story about what was happening on the mint floor that day, a mix-up in planchet feeding that escaped the eyes of quality control. Then there are die cracks and cuds, where part of the die has broken away, leaving raised metal blobs or missing parts of the design. While minor die cracks are fairly common, larger and more dramatic breaks can become collectible in their own right. A 2060 cent with a large cut on Lincoln's portrait or the memorial can become a showpiece in an error collection. Lamination errors are another possibility, where impurities in the metal cause the copper plating to peel or bubble. These add visual intrigue and can increase value when they appear in unusual ways. In the grand scheme of things, error coins are like nature's anomalies, rare, fascinating, and capable of sparking excitement in even the most casual collector. For the 2060 cent, the presence of an error can elevate a coin from a common pocket find to something worth serious money. Auction results from the past show examples of Lincoln cents with dramatic errors selling for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on the severity, rarity, and demand among specialists. Beyond errors, another factor in value is toning. Over time, the copper plating on a 2060 cent can react with air, moisture, and handling to produce a range of colors. While most circulated coins simply darken to a dull brown, some uncirculated examples develop attractive rainbow toning, with shades of blue, purple, gold, and green. Collectors prize such coins when the toning is natural, even, and aesthetically pleasing. Artificial toning, however, is frowned upon, and experienced graders can often tell when color has been deliberately induced. Still, the allure of a vibrantly toned Lincoln cent can drive bidding wars among those who appreciate these miniature works of art. It's also important to understand how the massive mintage of the 2060 cent affects its place in the market. With nearly 4 billion coins struck at Denver alone, the sheer supply dwarfs demand for most purposes. Yet within that ocean of coins, scarcity emerges when we apply strict criteria for grade, condition, and special characteristics. Think of it as panning for gold in a river. Most of what you find will be ordinary sand and gravel, but once in a while, a gleaming nugget appears. The search is part of the fun, and for some collectors, the thrill of finding that gem coin is more rewarding than the actual market value. One of the more intriguing aspects of the Lincoln cent series, including the 2060, is how it ties into American culture and everyday life. Everyone has handled pennies. They are part of childhood allowance money, jars of spare change, and lucky finds on sidewalks. This shared familiarity gives the coin a certain democratic appeal. Anyone can collect them without needing to be wealthy. You can start by simply checking your pocket change, and for some, that's how the hobby begins. As for the incredible claim of a $124 million value, that figure would represent the extreme pinnacle of rarity and collector desire, far beyond the norm for any modern cent. In reality, such values are reserved for coins that are unique, historically monumental, or tied to major numismatic lore, such as the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar. However, even without approaching that stratosphere, the 2060 cent still teaches us a valuable lesson about numismatics. Every coin has a story, and sometimes the smallest details, an extra curl in Lincoln's hair from a doubled die, a missing portion of the memorial from a dyed break, or the flawless surfaces of an MS-68 example, can change the narrative completely. By the mid-2000s, the United States Mint faced an economic reality that would quietly shape the way the humble 1-cent coin was viewed. While the Lincoln cent remained an iconic symbol in American currency, the costs associated with its production had begun to surpass its face value. In 2006, the base metals required for minting each penny were zinc and a thin layer of copper, yet global commodity prices had driven the cost of these materials upward. Adding in labor, machinery operation, packaging, and distribution, the mint found itself spending more than a cent to produce a coin worth exactly 1 cent. The term for the difference between the face value of a coin and the cost to produce it is seigniorage. For most coins and paper money, seigniorage is positive, meaning the mint profits from their production, but for the cent, it had become negative. This meant the government was effectively losing money for every penny made, and when multiplied by the billions of cents produced annually, the losses reached tens of millions of dollars per year. This problem was not new, but by 2006 it was becoming harder to ignore. Lawmakers, economists, and policy analysts began to publicly debate whether the penny should be eliminated entirely, as had been done in countries such as Australia in 1992 and New Zealand in 1989. Canada would follow suit in 2013. Proving that advanced economies could adapt to life without their lowest denomination. Opponents of the penny argued that its purchasing power had eroded dramatically over the decades. What 1 cent bought in 1909 was worth over 20 times as much as it did in 2006, and that modern cash transactions could easily be rounded to the nearest 5 cents without significantly impacting consumers or businesses. Proponents of keeping the penny, however, countered that it still served a role in pricing psychology, allowing retailers to list items at prices ending in .99 to make them seem cheaper. Others invoked tradition, sentiment, and the cultural symbolism of Lincoln's portrait on the coin. Charities also argued that eliminating the penny would hurt small-scale donation drives, such as those collecting spare change for schools and causes. Even the lucky penny, superstition, had its defenders. The debate thus straddled the line between economics and emotion, with the 2060 Lincoln Memorial cent caught in the middle as just one more year's output of a denomination under scrutiny. The economics of coin production also intersected with the collector's world in interesting ways. While billions of 2060 cents were struck and most would never be worth more than face value, the fact that the coin cost more to make than its monetary value gave it an odd sort of prestige among numismatists who appreciate the ironies of minting. A high-grade example, perfectly preserved and perhaps exhibiting a notable error, might sell for dozens or even hundreds of dollars on the collector market, a margin far greater than the mint's loss per coin. In this way, the numismatic value could far exceed both the cost of production and the face value, restoring seigniorage in the private collector's realm, though of course the government saw none of that secondary market profit. The composition change in 1982 from nearly pure copper to copper-plated zinc had been the mint's earlier attempt to control costs. But by 2006 even zinc prices had risen enough to create financial pressure. There was occasional discussion about altering the cent's composition yet again, perhaps using steel or an aluminum alloy, but such changes came with challenges. Steel, for example, was tried briefly during World War II in the famous 1943 steel cents, but the coins caused confusion because they resembled dimes in color and were prone to rust if their thin zinc coating wore off. Aluminum cents were tested in the early 1970s but never released, in part due to vending machine compatibility issues and political backlash from the copper industry. The penny's survival in 2006 was thus a product of inertia as much as deliberate choice. The public was used to it, the political cost of eliminating it seemed high, and while it was expensive to produce, it still represented a small fraction of overall government spending. This did not stop periodic hearings in Congress or editorials in financial publications calling for its abolition. For the everyday user, the penny's existence was simply taken for granted, and the 2060 slipped into circulation by the billions, quietly carrying the economic contradiction of costing more to make than it was worth. For collectors aware of these realities, the 2060 can serve as a conversation piece about the inefficiencies of modern coinage production. It is a small, tangible artifact of an era when the U.S. Mint's most produced coin had already outlived its practical utility but persisted for reasons that extended beyond economics. Even if the penny were someday retired, coins like the 2060 would remain in collections and coin jars for decades, continuing to circulate in small numbers until attrition and hoarding gradually removed them from daily life. At the same time, the Denver Mint's output in 2006 was so massive that the 2060 remains a plentiful coin in uncirculated rolls and bags, often stored away by banks or sold in bulk to collectors. For those assembling a complete date and mint mark set of Lincoln Memorial cents, the 2060 is an easy acquisition, but that accessibility is part of its charm. A new collector can obtain a bright red uncirculated example for very little money and still hold in their hand a piece of the largest coinage operation in the western United States. In numismatic terms, the economics of the 2006's production add a layer of interest even for those who might otherwise dismiss it as too common. The fact that it cost more to mint than it was worth gives it a kind of paradoxical rarity, not in numbers struck, but in representing a broader economic problem. For historians of U.S. coinage, such context is valuable, and for a storyteller, it offers a rich backdrop against which the tale of the coin can be told. Every coin has a life story, though most of it passes unnoticed. The 2060 Lincoln Memorial cent, like its countless siblings, began its existence as nothing more than a punched blank on a Denver Mint production line. But once struck and released into the world, it embarked on a journey that could take it anywhere. Into the pocket of a child buying candy, into the till of a gas station, into the change cup of a taxi driver, or forgotten for years at the bottom of a desk drawer. Along the way, each coin acquires marks, discolorations, and subtle changes in its surface, each one telling part of its unique story. Some 2060 cents had a much shorter road to collector hands. Dealers often purchased uncirculated rolls from banks soon after release, searching for top-quality specimens. For these dedicated searchers, the thrill was in the hunt, cracking open a bright orange-wrapped roll, the smell of fresh copper rising as the coins slid into the light for the first time. Each coin would be tilted under a strong lamp, rotated slowly to catch the luster, checked for clean fields, sharp strike, and the absence of distracting marks. A coin with blazing red color and sharp detail would be set aside for possible grading, while the rest might go back into the market or be stored away in bulk. There are stories in the numismatic community of casual finds that turned into small windfalls. One collector recounted receiving a handful of change from a coffee shop, only to notice that one penny seemed unusually crisp. Upon closer inspection with a loupe, he saw doubling in the date and the word Liberty. Though faint, it was enough to suggest a double-die variety. After sending the coin to a grading service and having it attributed, it sold at auction for several $100s, all from a coin that, moments earlier, had been part of everyday pocket change. Another story comes from a retired machinist who, out of habit, always checked his change under a magnifying glass at his workbench. In 2006, he spotted what looked like a split in the rim of a brand new penny. This was no damage from circulation. It was a die crack, running in a jagged line across Lincoln's bust and into the field. The error wasn't extreme enough to bring huge money, but it still sold to another collector for over $50, not a bad return on a 1-cent investment. These stories illustrate the possibility, however small, that a seemingly ordinary 2060 cent might hold a surprise for the observant. Coin shows in the years following 2006 saw tables piled with coppery rolls of memorial cents. Dealers would have boxes labeled BU rolls, brilliant uncirculated, with the Denver issues often in greater quantity than the Philadelphia ones in certain regions. Collectors, especially those working on high-grade registry sets, would comb through these, hoping to find that elusive MS-68RD or even the near-mythical perfect MS-70. Such perfection is almost never achieved, as even coins straight from the mint can carry microscopic imperfections from contact during bagging or tiny planchet flaws invisible to the naked eye. Still, the chase itself became part of the hobby's joy. For younger collectors, the 2060 often served as an entry point into the world of coin collecting. It was modern, easy to find, and affordable. A simple Whitman folder or Dansko album for Lincoln Memorial cents provided a ready-made home for one. In classrooms and scout meetings, leaders would sometimes use a new, shiny 2060 as an example when teaching about mint marks, composition, and coin design. It's clear, below the date made it easy to demonstrate how mint locations are indicated. The human side of the coin extends beyond collectors to the people who worked in the Denver Mint itself in 2006. For them, the coin was part of their daily output, just one of the many denominations moving down the production lines. Yet pride in the quality of the work often ran deep. Mint employees have described the rhythmic roar of presses, the metallic scent in the air, and the feeling of handling bags holding thousands of freshly minted coins, each destined to circulate across the nation. A small imperfection in a batch might mean adjusting a press or swapping out a die, knowing that even minor variations could eventually be spotted by the sharp eyes of collectors. In this way, every high-grade or error 2060 cent that enters the collector market also carries the legacy of those who minted it. The artistry of Brenner and Gasparo, the technical skill of engravers, the precision of the press operators, and the decisions of quality control inspectors all converge in that small disc. Once it leaves the mint, the rest is chance. Who will receive it, how it will be handled, and whether someone will one day recognize it as something more than just a penny. Even the most common 2060 cent plays its role in the larger tapestry of numismatics. Some will be lost forever to the economy, dropped in parking lots, swept into vacuum cleaners, or left to corrode in the soil. Others will survive in coffee cans, in estate drawers, and in bulk dealer inventory for decades. And a few will be elevated to special status, slabbed in protective holders, photographed for auction catalogs, or passed down from one generation of collectors to the next. For the trained eye, the 2060 Lincoln Memorial cent is not just a small disc of copper-plated zinc, it is a landscape of artistic detail and mechanical precision. Under magnification, Lincoln's portrait reveals textures invisible to the naked eye. The bow tie, for instance, is not merely a flat triangular shape, It has sculpted ridges that give the illusion of folds in fabric. The lapel lines, so fine and shallow, taper away like brush strokes in miniature bronze sculpture. Even Lincoln's hair, from the waves above his forehead to the distinct lock falling toward the temple, carries depth that speaks to the engraver's patience and skill. The mint mark, D, below the date is another focus of specialist study. On most 2060 cents, the D is sharply defined, its inner curves smooth and without excess metal. Yet, in some examples, a closer look reveals signs of die deterioration, doubling or mechanical doubling, subtle shifts where part of the mint mark appears slightly raised or shadowed. To the casual spender, this would pass unnoticed. To a variety collector, it is a breadcrumb leading to research into die stages and press alignment. Turn the coin over, and the reverse becomes an entirely new canvas. The Lincoln Memorial design by Frank Gasparo is an architectural marvel in miniature. Each of the 12 visible columns, evenly spaced, stands in delicate relief. Through the central opening, Lincoln's seated statue can be faintly seen, a detail that often amazes newcomers when they first notice it under a loupe. The roof lines are straight and crisp on fresh strikes, but on worn coins they soften and merge into the fields, erasing the illusion of sharp stonework. Above, the words United States of America arch in bold letters, their edges showing the telltale square shoulders of a strong strike. Specialists pay close attention to the spacing between letters and inscriptions like E pluribus unum. On certain dies, minute variations in letter positioning or thickness can point to an early or late die state, or even a double die reverse. Such varieties, though sometimes subtle, can command higher prices when certified by a grading service, especially in high grades. Another element often studied is the rim and edge. While the cents edge is plain, free of reeds, the rim serves as a protective boundary for the design. A strong rim, full and raised, indicates proper die pressure and planchet preparation. Weak rims or irregular width may hint at a misaligned die or early signs of die wear. For error enthusiasts, the 2006D offers opportunities to hunt for examples like off-center strikes, broad strikes, or die clashes. An off-center strike might leave part of the design missing and expose blank planchet surface, creating a dramatic appearance. A broad strike, lacking the constraining effect of the collar die, spreads the coin slightly wider than normal, with design elements stretching outward. Die clashes occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring ghostly images from one side to the other. In some 2060 cents, faint outlines of the memorial's columns can be seen behind Lincoln's head, a numismatic whisper of that moment in the press room. In this way, each 2060 cent becomes a potential research subject. For some collectors, the enjoyment lies in photographing these details, cataloging them, and sharing findings with others in online forums or local coin clubs. A single coin can be discussed for hours, its strike quality, die condition, luster, and surface preservation all contributing to its story. Like a detective piecing together clues, the numismatist reads the coin for signs of its creation, its journey, and its individuality among the billions. Even the light itself plays a role in the coin's appeal. Tilt a fresh 2060 under a desk lamp, and the luster dances in cartwheel patterns, reflecting in bright arcs that move with the angle. This cartwheel effect is prized by collectors, as it signals that the coin's surface remains unbroken by wear or heavy contact. It is a reminder that, even for something as common as a penny, beauty resides in the smallest details, and that beauty can be preserved if the right hands recognize it in time. When it comes to the market for coins like the 2060 Lincoln cent, psychology plays as big a role as rarity or condition. A coin is, at its simplest, a small piece of metal with a set face value. But in the collector's world, perception, narrative, and the promise of scarcity can transform that penny into something worth far more. This is where the $124 million figure enters the conversation, not as a common market price for the coin, but as the pinnacle of how extraordinary circumstances, myths, and hype can capture the public imagination. Sometimes a news article, a viral social media post, or even a misunderstood listing on an auction site can ignite a wave of interest in a coin that most people have never thought twice about. Imagine scrolling through your phone and seeing a headline claiming, Rare 2060 penny worth over $100 million found in change. Even without checking the source, curiosity strikes. Suddenly, everyone with a jar of coins at home is digging through it, turning over every Lincoln cent from that year, hoping lightning might strike twice. The psychology is simple. The dream of finding unimaginable wealth in something as small and ordinary as a penny is irresistible. From a collector's standpoint, such hype cycles are double-edged swords. On one hand, they bring new people into the hobby, fueling curiosity about mint marks, errors, and grades. On the other, they can lead to inflated expectations and disappointment when the reality sets in that most 2060 cents are worth just a cent or slightly more. Still, these moments are powerful in shaping market behavior. Dealers often report increased demand for high-grade certified examples during such viral surges, with prices temporarily spiking as buyers compete for what they now perceive as investment coins. In truth, the actual record-breaking prices in the coin world are usually tied to extremely rare varieties or coins with unique histories. For the 2060 cent to legitimately fetch a valuation approaching 9 figures, it would have to possess something so extraordinary, perhaps a one-of-a-kind double-denomination strike on a gold planchet, combined with flawless preservation and a documented, dramatic backstory, that it would effectively become a museum piece. While that specific scenario hasn't occurred, the speculation and what-if mindset help keep the dream alive for collectors and non-collectors alike. The idea of a $124 million penny also taps into the human love for treasure hunts. Stories of rare coins being discovered in ordinary change go back decades. A 1955 double-die cent found in a bankroll, a 1943 copper cent pulled from a school lunchroom till, a coin hoard uncovered in an old attic. The 2060, with its massive mintage, would seem an unlikely candidate for such legendary status, yet the very unlikeliness is part of the appeal. After all, if something so common could be so valuable, then anyone could stumble into fortune without warning. Market trends also reveal how storytelling drives price perception. A dealer might list a superbly graded 2060 with blazing red luster, promoted as top pop, the highest graded example known, and link it to a wave of online chatter about rare pennies. The bidding might climb far higher than it would in a quieter market. In such cases, the value lies not just in the coin's physical attributes, but in its moment in the spotlight, when collector psychology and public fascination collide. Over time, the hype may fade, and the prices for ordinary 2060 cents will return to their baseline. But the memory of that moment, when a penny became the talk of social media and headlines screamed of impossible riches, will linger in the hobby. It will inspire a new wave of searchers, young and old, each one hoping to be the person who turns an overlooked piece of change into a life-changing find. In this way, even if no 2060 cent ever truly sells for $124 million, the story continues to give the coin a kind of cultural value that transcends its physical worth. When a collector believes they've found a 2060 Lincoln cent that could be exceptional, the next logical step is often to submit it to a professional grading service. This process is not just about authentication, it's about securing an official opinion on the coin's condition and, by extension, its place in the market hierarchy. Grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Company, have built their reputations on consistency and expertise, and their grades can make or break a coin's market potential. For the 2060, the grading scale is the familiar 1 to 70, with mint state, MS, grades starting at 60 and climbing toward the elusive 70. In practical terms, an MS-60 coin might be uncirculated but covered in marks and lacking eye appeal, while an MS-68 or MS-69 example will appear nearly flawless under magnification, with strong luster and pristine surfaces. The difference between MS-67RD and MS-68RD, just 1 point, can sometimes translate into hundreds of dollars in price during a hype cycle, even though to the untrained eye they might look almost identical. The RD designation is especially important for Lincoln cents. It stands for red and it indicates that the coin retains at least 95% of its original bright copper color. Over time, copper naturally tones toward brown, so a coin that remains fully red years after minting suggests exceptional storage conditions and minimal handling. Other designations include RB for red-brown and BN for brown, with prices generally decreasing as the color shifts away from red. For a 2060, a high-grade RD coin is the most desirable for registry collectors chasing perfection. The submission process itself can be nerve-wracking. The coin must be carefully handled, often with cotton gloves, and placed in a protective flip or capsule. Once at the grading facility, it passes through multiple stages of evaluation. Graders examine strike quality, surface preservation, luster, and any signs of cleaning or alteration. Even a single tiny contact mark in a focal area, like Lincoln's cheek or the memorial steps, can drop the grade and reduce the coin's market potential. Occasionally, a 2060 sent in for grading surprises its owner by coming back with an error or variety designation. A doubled die, repunched mint mark, or striking error officially noted on the slab can dramatically increase collector interest. In such cases, the label on the holder becomes as important as the coin itself, since it formally certifies a feature that might otherwise be overlooked or dismissed. High-grade certified examples often end up in registry sets, where collectors compete to assemble the finest possible collection of a given series. In this competitive environment, the 2060 and MS68RD or higher becomes a prize not because it is inherently rare, but because so few have been graded at that top level without distracting marks or toning. Registry competition can push prices to levels that seem irrational to outsiders, yet within the collector community they are accepted as the cost of reaching the top of the leaderboard. For those aiming to sell, timing matters. In the midst of a viral surge about rare pennies, a top-graded 2060 can fetch significantly more than during a quiet period. Savvy sellers watch the market, monitor auction results, and sometimes hold on to coins until a wave of renewed interest drives demand upward again. The $124 million legend, while exaggerated, still serves as a kind of background hum in the hobby, a reminder that the right coin, in the right moment, can command astonishing attention. Even coins that don't make the highest grades can benefit from professional grading, especially if they have unusual errors or varieties. A coin with a visible die clash, off-center strike, or dramatic plating issue gains legitimacy when encapsulated and labeled by a trusted service. This makes it easier to market and often broadens the pool of potential buyers, since collectors know they're not taking a gamble on authenticity. And yet, for all the precision and formality of grading, there's still an element of romance in the hunt for the perfect 2060. Every roll opened, every coin tilted under a light, carries the possibility, however slim, of finding one that stands above the rest. The grading scale, the slabs, the market values, they're all part of a larger narrative where a humble penny might one day take its place among the elite. The story of the 2060 Lincoln cent truly begins inside the sprawling Denver Mint, a facility with roots going back to the late 1800s and a history of producing billions of coins for circulation. In 2006, the Mint was operating with modern high-speed presses, yet every coin it struck was still part of a tradition stretching back more than a century. The Denver Mint is not just a factory, it is a place where raw metal becomes national currency, where design and engineering merge into objects that pass through millions of hands. Inside, the process starts with blank planchets, each one a precise composition of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating. The planchets arrive as lifeless, flat discs, but they are carefully inspected before striking. Any planchet with visible blemishes, discoloration, or improper thickness is rejected. Those that pass inspection are fed into presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute. Each press houses an obverse die bearing Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln and a reverse die with Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design. As the press descends with immense force, tens of tons of pressure in a fraction of a second, the design is transferred to both sides of the planchet. Simultaneously, the coin's rim is formed, giving it both a protective edge and a finished, framed appearance. The D mint mark is already part of the obverse die, so every coin emerging from the Denver presses proudly bears the mark of its birthplace. Despite the speed of production, quality control is meticulous. Technicians monitor strike quality, luster, and die wear, replacing dies when they show signs of fatigue. A fresh die produces coins with razor-sharp details, crisp hair strands, distinct memorial columns, and clean lettering, while a worn die can leave softer impressions. This is why two coins from the same year and mint can appear subtly different under magnification. The Denver Mint in 2006 was a bustling operation. Forklifts moved pallets of newly struck coins to giant counting machines, which funneled them into bags weighing thousands of pounds each. Those bags were then sealed, tagged, and shipped to Federal Reserve facilities, where the coins would enter circulation. Some traveled across the country, others stayed within the western United States. From there, they filtered into banks, cash registers, and pockets, beginning their long journey through everyday commerce. For most coins, this journey means years of wear, scratches from contact with other coins, dulling of the original red luster, and eventual toning as the copper plating reacts with air and moisture. But a few coins, by chance, are spared this fate. They might be pulled from circulation immediately by a collector, stashed away in a bank roll, or included in a mint set sold directly to the public. These survivors often retain their original brilliance and sharp detail, making them the best candidates for high-grade certification decades later. The Denver Mint itself has always carried a certain mystique among collectors. Known for producing coins with generally strong strikes, it still produces occasional anomalies. A slight misalignment of dies, a momentary planchet flaw, or a lapse in the collar die's grip can create minor errors. While such occurrences are rare in the tightly controlled environment of a modern mint, they do happen, and when they do, they turn an ordinary coin into something far more interesting to numismatists. For the 2060 cent, the sheer scale of production, hundreds of millions of coins, makes the thought of any individual coin being special seem improbable. And yet, that improbability is part of its charm. Somewhere in those countless coins, a few might stand out for their immaculate condition, unusual toning, or rare mechanical error. The Denver Mint's presses, humming in the heart of the city, sent those coins out into the world without any special treatment, unaware that years later they might become the focus of intense collector interest and stories of astronomical value. It is here, in this combination of precision mass production and the random quirks of machinery, that the 2060 cent finds its dual identity. A common object with uncommon potential. Every coin was born in the same place, under the same conditions, yet each carries its own path and possibility, whether it ends up worn smooth in a parking meter or sitting untouched in a velvet-lined case. Once a freshly struck 2060 Lincoln cent leaves the Denver Mint, it becomes part of a vast, anonymous stream of currency. It is loaded into bulk bags with hundreds of thousands of its identical brothers and sisters, then shipped to Federal Reserve facilities that serve as distribution hubs for the nation's coins. From there, the path splinters endlessly. Some coins are sent directly to banks in rolls and boxes, ready to be handed over to customers withdrawing change. Others are funneled into armored trucks that deliver them to retail companies, vending machine operators, and cash handling services. At this stage, the coins are still pristine, their surfaces unmarked, their red copper glow untouched by the friction of circulation. The moment a coin enters daily use, its transformation begins. A bank teller might break a roll to make change for a customer. A cashier might hand it out as part of a purchase. Each transaction brings it into contact with keys, wallets, and other coins, each jostle leaving tiny marks invisible to the casual eye but glaring to a professional grader. A coin dropped on pavement can acquire a rim ding that forever disqualifies it from top-grade status. Even a short time in circulation can dull the delicate brilliance of its mint bloom. This is why the odds of finding a truly perfect, gem-quality coin in everyday change are so slim, and why the thrill of spotting one is so powerful. Collectors know that the vast majority of 2060 cents will never be worth more than their face value. Yet, the myth of the $124 million penny breathes life into an otherwise ordinary object. It transforms a pocket full of change into a field of possibility. It makes someone pause while emptying a jar of coins and examine each date and landmark, looking for the one that might stand apart. This small act of searching connects millions of people to the same hopeful curiosity, that maybe, against all odds, they might stumble onto a fortune. The psychology is not unlike buying a lottery ticket, except here the ticket is already in your possession, and it costs you nothing more than a moment's attention. The 2060 cent becomes a symbol not of wealth itself, but of the potential for something extraordinary to emerge from the most ordinary of places. This is why the legend persists, why YouTube videos and news headlines return to it again and again, why people share stories of someone's uncle's neighbor's friend finding a rare coin in their change. In the coin collecting community, the real treasures are often found not in fantastical price tags, but in the small victories, locating a perfectly struck example, spotting an overlooked error, or rescuing a bright red cent from decades of wear. Yet the legend of an unimaginably valuable penny keeps the doors open for newcomers, sparking the first ember of curiosity that might lead someone into the hobby for life. A single story, no matter how exaggerated, can inspire the next generation of numismatists. And so the 2060 Lincoln cent lives on in both reality and myth. In reality, it is a common coin minted by the hundreds of millions, its true value usually measured in cents rather than millions of dollars. In myth, it is a hidden treasure, a once-in-a-lifetime discovery waiting to happen to an unsuspecting person checking their change at the grocery store. Between these two worlds lies the real magic, the understanding that while most coins will never become famous, the hunt for that one special piece enriches the imagination and connects us to a history of craftsmanship, commerce, and the enduring human love for stories of luck and fortune. Perhaps somewhere, tucked in a desk drawer or lying unnoticed in the back of a change jar, a 2060 exists that truly is different. A flawless strike, a rare error, a perfect survivor of the mince machines. Maybe it will one day cross a grading services desk and ignite another wave of headlines, another cycle of excitement. Until then, the legend will keep circulating, much like the coins themselves, passing from hand to hand, sparking curiosity and keeping alive the possibility that the smallest thing in your pocket might just be worth a fortune beyond imagining.